Can new eyeballs make you a better person? Can new eyeballs save the planet? Can new eyeballs make your world remarkably better? I guess I'm about to find out. It's all next on this episode of the Gratitude Journal podcast.
This is the Gratitude Journal podcast.
Yes, I'm so grateful for vision. Yes, I'll start off saying that. Hello there, my friend. It is Matthew here for another episode of the Gratitude Journal podcast. The podcast that still exists, by the way. That's still in existence. It's out there. It hasn't been contributed to in quite some time, and I have been fatigued at trying to offer apologies. So you'll just have to, I guess, go with the flow like I've been trying to do, okay? On a day-to-day existence and just taking it for what it's worth. And that's just the way it's been lately. It is the podcast that tries to find ways to hopefully introduce more gratitude into our general overall day-to-day existence. And I think I referenced this the last podcast episode, which I think was back in 2012, that I've been finding that to be more and more difficult. That's probably fodder for another podcast episode or a repeat podcast episode. But I've been kind of grappling with several things. One being, yes, being a caregiver, and now sort of, adding to that dimension. I'll get to that here in a little bit. But I have had, I know this sounds like old people disease, but I had to have cataracts removed in both eyes. So I've only been treated for one eye, and that was a couple of weeks ago. And it was one of those situations where almost every year I was getting a new eyeglass prescription, and our eye doctor, who coincidentally is in this little house right down the hill, so it's really weird. How many of you can walk to your eye doctor? We can. We basically just go out the front door, turn left again, go down the hill, and there in this little house is Dr. Andy Dodd, who has been there forever and ever, and that's where we go. Well, one of his assistants said to me, you're going to have to deal with cataracts because I can't do anything with any more eyeglass prescriptions. And it was one of those situations where I'd look through them for, 4 or 5 months and go, wow, I can see, like I don't have to get out of the chair to walk up to the television to look at the TV guide that's flashing on the screen. And after about 5 or 6 months, I would have to walk to the screen and go, oh, okay, the game starts at 7:30. I couldn't see that. So everyone assured me that this was a very sort of minuscule procedure, that it's the most commonly done medical procedure in the world, and that I had nothing to fear. But whenever anyone gets near your eye, there's always something to fear, don't you think? And that was kind of the case with me. But the prep and driving there probably took longer than the actual procedure. And I can't say that it's been the most fun because I spend about half of my day now putting eye drops in my eye, my left eye, at various intervals throughout the day. That's lessened a little bit. And I've gotten kind of good at putting eye drops in. But the fact that now through my current eyeglass prescription, I see, normally with my right eye using the right lens in the eyeglass prescription, but now I have a new lens in my eyeball, and seeing through the eyeglass prescription on the left side makes for some really weird things going on, but I can't do anything about it until maybe not quite 2 weeks from today, which is a Sunday. What day is this now? The 14th. I can't really do anything about it until I get the new eyeball lens in the right eye. So that's kind of what I've been grappling with, seeing, vision, having headaches every day. But really now when I just open my left eye and look at things, I can actually see some stuff. I didn't get the whole kit and caboodle because they wanted to talk me into having like LASIK and all this stuff. But at $3,000 an eye, it's just not something that's in the budget. And so I opted to just get the regular thing that insurance would partially cover, which so far has been remarkably better. So a new eyeglass prescription is in the works, and hopefully new renovated vision, which will take me into however long I'm going to be allowed to be in existence on the planet. So I mentioned caregiving has taken on a little bigger role, I suppose. So we were at this event last Sunday, and it was the birthday party for Donna's aunt, who turned 100 years old, and her sisters came in, and that was fun. It was a fun week of getting together and hanging out. And we went to this party, and so it was in like a lodge, like a moose lodge. And they had, like in their hall, they had sort of carpet that surrounded sort of the perimeter of the room. And then in the middle was this tile square that you would use, like for a wedding reception. So when people would dance, they would have, a regular floor to dance on. And so we kind of moved over to the perimeter of the room where they had some food set up, and we were in line and we got our food, and we were walking back to our table, and I was kind of walking ahead of Donna. I was saying something to her. I remember specifically it was about salad dressing, because she normally doesn't do salad dressing, but she wanted some, and she goes, I forgot the salad dressing. And I said, well, I got enough for both of us. I'll just give you some of mine. And as I was saying that, I heard this kind of like plump a little bit. And I kind of turned around, and there she was lying on the ground. Now, that is a devastating experience to see, your loved one lying on the ground, writhing in agony, covered with salad and chicken and everything else. And that was really bad. She couldn't move her shoulder, and she was kind of writhing and screaming, and several people came over who were very, very nice. And one, I think, was a nurse and was trying to get her not to do anything. And I was like, can you move your fingers? And she was like, she shouldn't move anything right now. We're going to call the paramedics. And Donna's screaming, I don't want paramedics. And so the paramedics did come, and they tried to conduct some tests. And they said, well, if it were me, I would take her to the emergency room right now. And I'm like, well, can I take her? Because, the cost is going to be, sort of whatever. And Donna's like, I'm not riding in an ambulance. She was really adamant. And so the short story of a long tale is that I decided to leave the event and drive her to the ER, where she was later diagnosed via X-ray that she had a fractured shoulder. I think the odd thing about that event is that most of the people who were already seated at their table eating, while my bride was writhing in agony on the floor, maybe kind of treated it as maybe the afternoon's entertainment, maybe, because they just sort of kept eating. Now, I didn't expect everyone to jump out of their seat and come over, but it was kind of odd that, the afternoon's entertainment, aside from having this wonderful, beautiful woman who just turned 100, was that this other woman was sort of laying in, chicken Alfredo or fettuccine Alfredo, sort of writhing in agony, holding her shoulder. It was kind of weird. Anyway, I still kind of chuckle a little bit about that. And it was very odd. It was very Seinfeld-esque, almost like Curb Your Enthusiasm type event. So since then, my caregiving duties have really expanded. I don't think she's going to have surgery. At least that's what the people at the ER said. And we really don't see an orthopedic person till the end of the week. But it's been, sling time, actually double sling, because they have this sling where you put your arm in a sling, and then they have this kind of wrap that Velcros around it so you don't take your wing and kind of move it out. I know, as a veteran shoulder surgery a person that, through multiple rotator cuff surgeries, that, that's the thing that the shoulder docs don't like you to do, is kind of, take your arm and sort of move it out away from your body. And this kind of extra Velcro wrap prohibits one from doing that. And we're at the point now where, she can't, she can kind of shower, but she can't. So I'm assisting there where I didn't really assist with that before. And, helping her get dressed, which I really didn't assist with that before. And just making sure that even when she gets tired of sitting on the sofa and she might accompany me to the store to ride in the car, just walking down the steps is like, it makes me nervous. It makes her nervous. It's a weird, wild time. And, I'm blaming Chicken Alfredo on this. I have felt like things have kind of mounted lately, and it kind of tests my patience level. And so I should apologize, to Donna and others around me right now, because I've been a little short-fused lately. And I feel like this is sort of it's crunch time. This is sort of where the rubber hits the road. And, if you're involved in any kind of caregiving, you know that you need an exceptional amount of patience. And I have felt a little devoid of patience lately. And I'm not really sure why, because I think overall I'm a pretty patient person, but I just have felt like I don't have the tools, all of the tools to be able to check all the boxes, do the things that I'm supposed to do, make sure that, the person I'm giving care to is safe and has all the things that she needs. And at the same time, I don't want to come off like an ogre or come off like somebody who's, running a totalitarian regime. And at the same time, I want to make sure that I'm not putting her in a position where someone, might say, like her son or something, why weren't you watching her? It's this weird place where I feel like I need to be. And, doing all of this stuff while also trying to function, at a high level, with work and client stuff and everything else. So where is the gratitude here? Like, where am I finding this gratitude? So I'll say, first of all, that I have to look at the big picture, and I think we all sort of have to look at the overarching big picture. Like that fall could have gone in a variety of ways. The fact that she fell on the tile dance portion of this, venue without really getting out on the middle of the dance floor and dancing. Really, in the old days, Donna would have been out there probably dancing even if there wasn't music. That's just the way she was. And the fact that she didn't bang her head or she didn't lose consciousness, because when the ER people, or not the ER, but the EMT folks arrived, they must have asked her like 5 times, did you lose consciousness? Did you hit your head? That could have gone in a variety of really, really bad ways, and it didn't. So I'm very, very grateful that did not happen, okay? I feel a little bad that I didn't get to eat any of the food because it looked good, but, that's what happens when you have to motor off to the ER. So I'm grateful that she didn't injure herself anymore. I'm also grateful that, the possibility looms that she will not have to have any kind of surgery. What will happen, I don't know, because we both saw the x-ray and, there's clearly a fracture there. And, the last couple of nights have been not really pleasant for her sleep-wise, which means they haven't been particularly pleasant for me. And I kind of find myself waking myself up thinking, well, wonder if she gets up to go to the bathroom and then she falls again. And so, it's, if you know how that works, that you don't get a lot of sleep, and until maybe some kind of healing process starts, I have no idea when that will be. And that, that's been difficult, but I'm grateful that the possibility exists that there may not have to be any kind of surgery. And, finally, I'm grateful because I have the capacity to offer care. Now, it probably sounds dumb, but, we have family members and friends where both people, in a relationship or both people living together in the same place are both going through, tremendous health challenges. And then you have to get other people involved or you have to call in professionals. And I feel like even though I can't see really well, I feel like the advantage is that I am able to, assist her and escort her where she needs to be and to make sure that she has the things that she needs. And as, a person who provides care, that's a bonus and that's a plus. And I'm very grateful for that. So I think in the midst of all of this, there are some things for which to be grateful. I'm also grateful for baseball. I know that sounds dumb, but lately, and Donna agrees with me and, probably feels this a little even more than me because baseball is kind of her favorite sport. We both have sort of been a little lacking in our interest in baseball. And I think some of it has to do with the fact that, our team was the Cleveland Indians and now they're the Cleveland Guardians. And it took me a year. It's probably still taking me a little bit of time to try to kind of adjust to the newness of this and to realize that, like many things, that's not coming back. Like they're never going to be the Cleveland Indians again. Now, I was not a fan of Chief Wahoo per se, but I didn't particularly have a problem with Cleveland Indians based on the fact that the United States government has an actual department, I believe, called the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So, I mean, you know what I mean? So I generally feel, and I think I've addressed this on a previous episode, that if the capacity exists where someone might get offended or be offended, and you can swallow it and kind of move on, it's probably better to swallow it and move on and change. That's what I feel. I may not agree with it, but I guess I feel that way. I don't want that hanging over. And so in the aggregate, I feel like it's probably better that, they're the Cleveland Guardians and they're not going to, create havoc for anybody unless someone is a Guardian and they don't like to be named after a team, or it's some security company that didn't really want, their company name used as a mascot. But for the most part, it's not going to create havoc or cause worry for anybody. But I do feel, and I still feel to a certain extent, like some of my, day-to-day sort of fixation with Cleveland baseball and just kind of baseball in general, following box scores and making sure that I knew when first pitch was and, it's a rain out, it's a doubleheader. Can we listen or can we watch? A little bit of that has kind of waned a little bit. And like people would start talking about baseball and I'd be like, I don't want to hear about baseball, whatever baseball. I'll just wait for the Browns. I'll just wait for football. And I have this friend, Tim, who he forwards a lot of stuff. And like sometimes when he would forward box scores and news about the team and, before I would kind of relish it and savor it and we would, bounce notes back and forth. I was just like, okay, I don't really want to read this. I don't know where I feel about baseball. And then I'm reminded back in, I believe it was 1993 or 1994, it must have been the time of the strike, and it must have been around the time that Ken Burns, the great documentarian, created his documentary called Baseball. And I was kind of sour on baseball. Like, I think that there were some other things in my life then, and I just wasn't really following the Indians, and I wasn't going to games. And finally, one time, Donna turns to me, we're in the living room watching the news, and she goes, can we go to a game sometime? And I'm like, wow, you never really asked me about going to a game. Okay, sure. Knowing full well later on we would be, married on a ball field. I mean, it was weird that happened. And it was about the time of the baseball documentary. And I remember watching the early episodes of the Ken Burns baseball series and really feeling my love for the game begin to come back. And it just so happened coincidentally, if I'm remembering this correctly, and for those of you who are going, wait a minute, you're way off, like baseball came out and blah, 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 then that's fine. But I seem to remember baseball being sort of the instigator of me getting back into the game of baseball. And I remember this was also the time when the Indians had those powerhouse teams in the 90s, and like all was good as far as baseball. Like I was back into like collecting crap and like buying memorabilia and all this stuff. I'm not there anymore, but I feel like I'm coming back a little bit from the same kind of dilemma and ordeal. And I was saying to somebody, maybe it was one of Donna's sisters, and they're baseball fans. I feel like even if you don't even like baseball above all other sports, there's a connection there. Like they call it America's pastime, even though football is the most popular. It's easily the most fun to watch on television and the easiest to watch on television. There's something about baseball. There's something about the connection to baseball, about our history, and the fact that, like, even with the new rules, baseball is not really on a time limit per se. I mean, now it is a little bit more because of the pitch clock, but it's not like, oh my gosh, we only have 3 more minutes to get a run. No, you don't. I feel like there's still the rituals of the game and the combined with the sort of the pedigree of the game, and it still is the best game. I think it's America's best game. And, some guy in the Plain Dealer wrote a similar article this morning, which got me thinking about it. And I disagree with him on virtually everything because I think he's a Nimrod, but he really got this right. He nailed it. Like, baseball's still the best game. And even if you don't really follow baseball all that much, or even if you don't have a favorite team, I think I think you should pick a team to follow. That's what I think. And B, like look at a box score, look at a score, just know who they're playing. You don't have to watch the game. You don't have to know who bats third or what the team ERA is or anything like that. But I mean, I think it's just, it provides a glue, like a little bit of fiber, like a little bit of a connection to our lineage and our history. And I think even with all the stupid things that baseball still does, like not have a salary cap and allow some team to spend $500 million on a payroll. And I'm talking to you, Kyle, if you're listening, and your stupid Dodgers. And then, teams like my team that has like a $12 payroll, even with those discrepancies, which I think should be eliminated, baseball's still the best. Baseball's still the best game. And I think Donna would agree with me. So there you have it. Eyeballs and falls. Eyeballs, falls, and baseballs. Okay, I like that. That's going to be the title of this podcast. I'm going to try to do better. I know I always say that. And, Hannah, my sister-in-law, was, berating me a little bit, like, where's this video podcast at? And I know I traded in some camera stuff, and I'm waiting on this other camera now to come. And I know it's what do they call it? It's gear. I forget. It's gas. Gear acquisition syndrome. There it is. Yes, that's a real thing. Okay, that is a real thing. And I think I have it nailed down. So I'm going to try to be better. And anyway, it's a beautiful day. I'm going to take whoever I'm calling her these days, my sling wielding buddy, and go out and maybe go for a ride and enjoy this sunny yet breezy, windy day, as is often the case in April. You never know what's going to happen in April here in Northeast Ohio. Hopefully it's great in your world. And finally, we're able to reconnect. I'm glad about that. So thank you. Here's hoping that gratitude plays a big role in your world today, or at least a little small minor role. And thanks for downloading and listening to another episode of the Gratitude Journal podcast.